Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? There was some confusion about whether the doors open at 6:30 and the program starts at 7 or whether the program starts at 6:30. So I apologize for that. Compromise. We're doing a compromise, the middle road. So on behalf of the Friends of the Scotts Valley Library, I want to welcome you. Welcome to our beautiful library here. Our Community Reads was started by the Friends of the Aptos Library about 5 years ago. And in this program, the community selects a book, and then the Aptos Friends finds themes in that book that they can turn into programs. And those programs are given throughout the month of February. This past year, the Friends of the Scotts Valley Library joined with the Friends of the Aptos Library together, and we participated for the first time. So this event that you see tonight is a result of the collaboration between the Aptos Friends and the Scotts Valley Friends. But before we begin, a couple housekeeping notes. This is going to be filmed, and it will be on the library YouTube site in probably about a week. Or, okay. When we exit the library after the program is over, we ask that you use these two doors. You go out into the patio and then into the parking area. Now, we have a problem in the parking area. The lights along the street, the city lights, are not working. So we have flashlights. I encourage you, when you go to your car, use the sidewalk, not where the cars will be driving out. And the other thing is, remember your cell phone probably has a flashlight. So those are handy. So be safe. It's my great pleasure to introduce our moderator tonight, Jim Bourne. He is a friend of the Aptos Library, but he is also a photographer. So these amazing bird portraits are his work, and I hope you had a chance to browse the library, see his other photographs that are up. His show is going to be up until the end of March, so if you didn't get a chance to see everything, come back at a later date. Jim, I'm turning it over to you.
Roxanne, and have we got sufficient volume? Sounds like good. First of all, I'd like to introduce the panelists tonight. This is Kevin Painchaud, Mary Altier, and Shmuel Thaler. All familiar names, I'm sure. I'm going to assume that you've all read the, excuse me, I knew this would happen. Anyway, I'm going to assume that you've all read the book. But just in case you haven't, the book is a fictional backstory of the famous migrant mother photograph that Dorothea Lange took. And in fact, all right, we're not working. A technical glitch on the slideshow. Oh, this thing has popped up again. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, I imagine you are all familiar with this photograph. It is one of the most famous photographs of the Depression era, taken in Napomo in 1936 by Dorothea Lange. The mother, the actual person name is Florence Owens Thompson. In the book, she is Mary Coyne. Dorothea Lange is Vera Dare. Let me see if I can make that go away again. There we go. All right, what is, oh, okay, excellent, sorry. We worked this all out, but some technical glitches. Dorothea Lange, a very famous photographer, was a member of a group of photographers who worked for the government during the Depression in what was originally called the Resettlement Administration. It then became the Farm Security Administration, or the FSA, and is probably best known as that. That is she at work, sitting on top of her car with her camera. That is the device that she used. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes too. For those of you who don't know where Nipomo is, if you have driven down to Southern California on 101, you've driven through Nipomo. I've done it many, many times, just north of Santa Maria. And people have gone and looked and to see if they can figure out where the photograph was taken. No such luck there. Needless to say, it has significantly changed since 1936. Dorothea Lange was at the very end of an assignment for the FSA, and she just was driving by one of the many migrant camps, and something made her turn around, come back, and look. And the first thing she came across was this grouping. I think it is something of an overstatement to call that a tent, but that is Florence Owens Thompson over there on the right, cradling one of her children. She had about 7 children at the time, I think 10 ultimately. But Dorothea Lange took a series of photographs, starting just back and then go in closer, in closer, and in closer. One of her children brought the rocker out front, and there's Florence again with the baby. And then she moved in a little bit closer. Florence Owens Thompson was either whole or half Cherokee. She was originally from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And the next picture in the sequence was the famous one. It was published in a San Francisco newspaper very few days after it was taken, and it resulted in a massive influx of food to this camp. Unfortunately, she and her family had already left. She was a widow by this time, but they had already moved on. But that photograph went on to be, I hate to use the word iconic, but it was iconic. It was on a postage stamp. It's one of the most famous photographs taken during the Depression. And that is she in the 1960s. And she died here in Scotts Valley in 1983. She is buried in, I can't remember, somebody said that she was buried here. That is not the case. She's buried somewhere out more toward the Central Valley. And her kids did very well, survived the Depression. They did very well for themselves. They provided for her. And the story is that actually, after they had gotten to the point where they could provide for her, they got her a house. And she didn't like it. And she had been living in a trailer and opted to move back into her trailer. So the question is, how did the picture get taken? This is not how the picture was taken, in case you were wondering. In fact, this is the device that Dorothea Lange used. It's not the same thing. This is more, even bigger, and in her case, it was handheld. It either could take roll film or sheet film, which she used, I'm not sure. But it's nonetheless, there were in fact other members of the FSA photography group who were using Leicas, for example. So 35mm film was in use, and you'll see some names that you may recognize shortly, but this is in fact what she used. There we go. I'm going to actually end up with just this part with a recommendation of a book. I have this book, and it was originally published in 1976, and a large format book. That is since out of print. My understanding is that it has been reprinted with all of the original photographs in a somewhat smaller format. It is an extraordinary book. And if I was born at the very end of World War II, but the period of I have sisters who were actually born in the 1930s. But we also were living in the Northeast, totally untouched in most cases by all of this experience. A lot of this is in the Southwest and in California and so forth, but it is a remarkable collection of photographs. These are the photographers. Roy Stryker was the director of the group. He was himself not a photographer. If you look down the names, though, you'll see Walker Evans, a very famous photographer. I asked on the author talk whether the name of one of the characters in the book, Walker Dodge, had anything to do with, well, I didn't come out and say as much, which I should have. Did she get the idea to call him Walker Dodge from Walker Evans? I don't think so. My impression was no. Dorothea Lange, Carl Meidens was quite famous. Apparently he took the famous picture of the I Have Returned picture of MacArthur walking ashore in the Philippines. Ben Shahn, actually better known as a painter, but he was also a photographer for the FSA. One of his devices was he used an angle viewfinder. So he would be, I guess he put it, anyway, he would be looking at you and taking a picture of Kevin. And so he got a lot of spontaneous pictures that way. And this is one of a spread from the book. And in fact, both these pictures by Dorothea Lange. And I think Mary will bring up later a book she's got, because one of these pictures is in that book, I think, yeah. So that is the sort of brief introduction to Mary Coyne, the world of the book Mary Coyne. Again, Mary Coyne is the fictional Florence Owens Thompson. Vera Dare is the fictional Dorothea Lange. Walker Dodge is the fictional Walker Dodge. He was a completely made up character. So we will move on to our panelists here. They have brought some samples of their work. And first off, Kevin Painchaud, photojournalist for Lookout Santa Cruz.
All right, this first image is, I was shooting, shooting with the Sentinel. I was doing a lot of stuff for the unhoused, actually, I still am. But this was a homeless mom that was living in her car with her 2-year-old daughter. And I ended up standing there and talking with her close to hour and a half, just about her life and how she came here. Then about a month after this photo was taken, the authorities took her daughter away. And I don't believe that she's seen her daughter since. And it's been about 1.5 years. So.
Tell them how old she is.
She 28, I think, 24. Forgot is the mom and the daughters too. This is his name is Frederick. This is I shot this when I went to Rwanda 10 years ago. 94 was the genocide. In 98, he was 15 years old, taking a bus, and the bus got stopped by some rebels. They forced everybody out of the bus. They gave him, Frederick, a machete, told him to kill everybody on the bus. He refused to, so they killed everybody on the bus, left him, took him into a field, tied up his hands, and chopped his arms off and left him for dead. He ended up miraculously getting out of there, walking down for quite a while. Two women found him, brought him to the hospital. He ended up being in coma for 6 months. Recovered, got back home. His mom didn't have the resources to take care of him, so she put him to an orphanage called Imbabazi, and that's where I was. I got hired to shoot photos and do website for Imbabazi orphanage. This was after he had already left, but so he was at the orphanage. He met this other kid, Zachary. Long story short, after they turned 18, they started a center for handicapped orphans called Mbamwe. And they have now over 100 handicapped people from around the community that come there to learn, to do education, to learn arts, to just learn how to live an independent life. So He's actually done TED Talks, and he's just an amazing, amazing individual. And action.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
This is Joy Flynn. This is on the first Black Lives Matter rally that happened 4 days after George Floyd died. She was the one that organized that first march at the clock tower. And so when she was kneeling, and I grabbed this photo.
Wait, wait. Oh, not so glad we went too far.
Okay. This one was also one of the Black Lives Matter rallies at the lighthouse. And so I was sitting on stage shooting, and I saw just this, beautiful kid just staring at me, and everybody else was kind of doing their own thing. And he was just staring at me. So I took this shot, and just his glare at his look at me just, kind of stood out. So this one is another photographer that I know and love very dearly. Well, this is it. We're both Sentinel together in the middle of the CZU fire, and we're doing go up there. The back burn going up off Empire Grade, I believe. No, Felton Empire. And Shmuel was just running to get the shot, and I turned around, saw him, and took the shot. And
It looks like a fireman running with with his hose or his hatchet or something, but that's a big lens.
Yeah, that's a very big lens. This is one of the when they was at San Lorenzo Park, the homeless encampment was up above in San Lorenzo Park. The cops came to kick everybody out, but there was loads of UC students and other people that took a stance against the police to stand up for the unhoused. And this guy was one of those that was defiantly yelling at the police. And I've actually ended up spending a lot of time with that man. He is has a meth problem and has been doing everything he can to try to get himself better, but he just keeps on sliding down that slippery slope. But he's a really good guy, and just his emotion of this really caught my attention.
And next up is Mary Altier, freelance travel photographer.
First of all, let me plug with that picture that was just there. This is a beautiful book that Kevin and Shmuel put together, and I think Shmuel might have a few copies.
We do, and it's a fundraiser for the Community Foundation's
Yeah.
fire fund, so I have a bunch here.
I thought it was perfect timing to. Hmm? Closer, thank you. I call this Himba Pietà, and this one somehow came to mind to me when I was reading the book as something, an occasion in which I was faced with what I considered a pretty invasive situation with a very private and personal. She had been nursing the baby, and it was made even more so because I was in about a 10 or 12 foot diameter hut, dark in there, and also with an assistant. One of the young Himba men was helping me with it. I had a flash attachment because it was really dark in there. Normally I do natural light, but I felt very welcome, and I just thought she was such a remarkable young woman, extremely young and healthy, and they're very adorned. That's the other thing about the Himba. They're known for how they do their adornment ritual.
What country is this?
This is in Namibia. I was going to tell you that, and this is in 2016. Most of what I chose, it's a hard thing. It's hard when somebody tells you to pick your 6 best images and you've been shooting for 50 years. So I picked things that were mostly recent. Thank you. Mostly recent from 2016 until 2022, I think. This one I call Maasai Shepherd. This is Tanzania in 2019. And this was obviously not a portrait, but I consider this a sort of more of a cultural shot because they're pastoralists, and I'm wearing jewelry from that group. And they, of course, their herds are their wealth, and they pretty much, everything has to do with their herds, finding grazing area for them. And this one is from Tanzania, but we actually just were in Kenya recently, and the drought, by the way, has affected them terribly. They're going farther and farther afield to find places for their herds to graze. This one I call Macubal Women with Colorful Umpoto Headdress. This is from Angola, 2022. And this was actually on a photo trip, which I don't usually go on, but Angola is a very difficult place to get to. Very remote. There were no roads, no services whatsoever. And we actually provided some goats and for a goat roast, and everyone assembled and in their best attire, and I was able to get this shot. This is from, I call this one Tango in La Boca, Buenos Aires, Argentina, 2018. It's another culturally relevant shot because with Argentina, tango is pretty much everything. La Boca was a working class suburb. It's now kind of a tourist destination, but it's a really fun place with very brightly colored buildings and people dancing tango. This is Woman Smoking Cigar, Havana, Cuba, 2017. And the interesting thing about that is she actually had a little sign up and told what she wanted in the way of money for each, for just not each shot, but just to take her picture. And I usually don't pay for pictures if I can avoid it, obviously. I prefer it be more natural. But she was so fabulous. And I, of course, took pictures of her and she posed nicely. But later I found out the Cuban government charges them for whatever location they are on the streets of Havana. So she has to pay to be there. And so that's pretty much how she makes her living and she had a really great spot. And of course, she's a really great subject. So I'm sure she was doing okay.
She was, I believe she is a member of the Santeria religion, the Santeria religion.
Yeah, exactly.
We were in Havana in 2015 and saw, there was one place in particular, but I remember being in somewhere in Havana, and there was this wonderful voice singing the peanut vendor coming down. I could hear it. I wasn't sure, it was coming from over there somewhere, and I had my camera. And I finally, it was a woman in the crowd, and she was, as I recall, wearing Santeria garb. And as she got closer, singing away, but as she got closer, she shook her head at me, no picture.
Yeah.
Did you say anything about Santeria? No. It's a religious movement in Cuba.
It's from Africa.
Yeah.
Some times of slavery.
There we go.
Okay, this is Uzbek woman in traditional embroidered dress, Uzbekistan 2019. I believe she was probably posing for a wedding. And I was lucky enough to just find her looking fabulous. And I asked if I could take a picture. And of course, she was being photographed by a local photographer who she had hired. And they both said yes. So I kind of became the recipient of that great moment. She probably also, my husband's saying she probably rented the dress. Yeah, it's a traditional garb.
Shmuel Thaler, whose name you have probably seen in the sentence.
Once or twice. My photographs, it was challenging. Jim had us each pick 6 of our either favorite or best photographs. So I just picked ones that were kind of important moments for me, at least. And I will say that Carl Maidans was one of the photographers listed as a Farm Security Administration photographer. My first assisting assignment at Jimmy Carter's inaugural in January 1977, I assisted Carl Maidans. So, yeah. So this is the oldest picture. They're actually chronologically, I think we go chronologically. So this was, that's Mario Cuomo being interviewed after he gave the keynote address at the 1984 San Francisco Democratic National Convention. And it was the first photograph for me, at least, that that I was able to combine what I had been doing in film school of worrying about geometry and shapes and lines and make it a journalistic image. So it really paved the way for me to kind of do what I do now.
And surely this is pre-drone.
Oh, no, this is in the atrium, and there was a stairway up above, and I just knew that if I took a picture down there, it would be the same as everyone else's. And it ran 3 columns, full page in the Mercury, and ran in the New York Times. So it was a pretty big deal for me. This is a picture, I'm trying to remember what year, and I don't, when they were emptying the oil tanks at the Moss Landing power plant, where before it changed to I think it's gas power, natural gas power now. One of the workers had started using a propane torch to cut a hole in one of the tanks, and of course that's not a great idea when you have about 1 million gallons of sludge left. But the reason I put this photo in was because I was driving around there. I was there all day, and there were explosions because there were a lot of propane tanks that were still in the tanks that were exploding. And so even the firefighters couldn't get in. And finally, and the smoke was all going one direction. It was all going south. I'm on Dolan Road. So if you looking towards the plant, so to the left is south and to the right is north. And it was all going towards Watsonville to the north. And then it switched directions, and I was leaving, and I looked in my rearview mirror and saw these cows and thought, this makes it, it makes it a picture beyond what was there before. And the cows belong to Monterey County supervisor. So it kind of had that nice little.
I have it back.
This is Russell Smith, who's a Santa Cruz surfer at Mavericks. It's the only time I photographed the Mavericks surf contest. And once again, it allowed me to shoot something that I'd never shot before. And at this point, I've shot most of the things I'd like to shoot. There's a few I'd still like to, but and it was just seeing him in this place and just making the image that is a little different than whatever you see typically coming out of Mavericks.
He appears to be surfing without benefit of a
He's
board.
losing his board right there. This is the moment where his board is going out, but it's the perfect wave. It's like that. It's kind of like that Hokusai wave, that people are familiar with. And I'm in a boat, right? Mavericks is an amazing place because the water depth where the break is extremely deep, and the shelf is extremely shallow. So you can be in a boat like it's not with a really long lens, it's with a 70-200, and you can be about 100 feet from this 50-foot wave, and the boat goes up and down a little. So a little. And this photograph I put in, this photograph for me is probably the most important photograph I've taken. It's not the most creative or kind of dynamic image. And I thank Kevin for my ability to take this picture, because this is the same moment of the picture he showed of Joy Flynn, where she has the sign, "I can't breathe," or "I can't breath," that's a whole, if you read our book, you'll read her essay about that. And I was freed to, because we were both working for the Sentinel at the time, and I was free to kind of just look around, and I knew this was an important moment. And then there's Andy Mills and Police Chief Andy Mills and Justin Cummings, the mayor of Santa Cruz, took this knee together, and without planning, without there being any photographers there. And I knew this was an important moment. And then I posted it on social media, and then it just exploded and became part of the national conversation about social and racial justice. It was the first time that a police officer, a white police officer, had been seen taking a knee during one of these protests. And it's been, I started that day after I shared it, I started seeing Michelle Pfeiffer share it, Katie Couric shared it, George Conway shared it, just on and on. And at this point, it's been shared hundreds of thousands of times and seen millions of times. So it's the privilege of having that place to have a part of the conversation on racial justice. And then some of you might recognize this. I think this is my last one, but I'm not sure.
One more.
Oh, one more after that. Okay, so this is not it. This is on Westcliff. My wife Kathy, who's in the back, knew that we were going to have lightning, and we woke up at 2 o'clock. We live up on the hill in Santa Cruz, and decided to go down to the cliff. And this was the lightning storm that caused the CCU. And so it was beautiful at the time. It's amazing to be able to photograph lightning when it's not raining. It makes it much easier for the photographer. And we don't obviously get lightning storms here a lot, but it became the historic significance of what happened here. Because of this, it was just a really important image to have and to be able to have taken. Oh yeah, so I thought I'd include, this is, Boone. I'm trying to remember what his first name is. It's a driver on Highway 1 during our recent storms. And he had been driving his car and this tree fell on it, and this is him getting off of the hood of his car. And just like, it's about being in the right place at the right time. I didn't know this was happening. I was with a reporter. We needed to go back to our office, and we see this tree across the road, and we like try and get out of the way. And then we drove and stopped, and then saw the car and saw him, and it was just this great moment.
I assume the right place at the right time is from your perspective.
Exactly. Well, I tell my wife Kathy I'm going to come home every night, even
Good.
during the fires, and so anyway, there.
Very good. All right. That's it for their presentation of their images. This will just stay up here as a reminder of what's happening next, the next two events for our community read. So, take a quick gander at it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday and a week from today. So I was going to start off with some questions I prepared, and I thought I'd start off with a kind of easy one, or maybe it's a really tough one. I don't know. What's your favorite subject matter? And let's just go back down the same line here. You have a favorite?
This one? Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite subject matter is capturing emotion. The look in their face and their eyes, just capturing emotion of people.
I think you can probably see from my work, yes, people, and particularly people in remote locations, generally indigenous people in remote locations, but people anywhere, everywhere. But I shoot everything just like these guys do too, because it's fun. I mean, you can't really isolate people from their environments. So obviously I do landscapes and whatever else is around when we're traveling.
And cliche, but I really don't have a favorite. It's just really, that's the wonderful thing about my job as a photographer at Sentinel. I've been there 35 years now, and it's going from news to sports to features to nature shots to whatever, and it's all just way too much fun.
Hang on to that. This kind of ties in with the book, because the question of Dorothea, Vera approaching, let's use Vera and Mary. So Vera approaching Mary to take the pictures. And according to both the book and the story, there wasn't an awful lot of dialogue between the two of them. There wasn't could I take your picture? I think there was, but there wasn't a lot of it. If you're approaching somebody that's new, that you don't know, how do you approach somebody if you're taking a picture of somebody that you want to to.
Well,
get a picture of?
I mean, it's very related to the situation. It's very situational for me. So if it's a kid, I will, before I even take a picture, I will find their parent for sure. If it's just this moment, I'll go, that's just this great picture, I'll take it, and then I will ask them. If it's breaking news story, I will take pictures of, and then, like the pictures Kevin had, I've taken pictures like that of the protests at the homeless camp or other places. And sometimes there's the opportunity to take pictures, to ask them, and sometimes they don't want their picture taken, and sometimes the news value overrides that. And I mean, it speaks to Dorothea Lange, to the Dorothea Lange picture of Florence. The importance of the image is immense and separate from the interaction, which I think it's a little problematic, but it doesn't detract from the image from my perspective.
Yeah, when you're approaching somebody, in your case, I imagine there's a language barrier as well. So, for example, the nursing mother or the Santeria woman, well, she was charging, but how do you approach somebody and make contact and make the photograph?
In some cases, we've had guides who speak the language. Sometimes you don't. And sometimes it's just eye contact. Like, how do you kind of just get a feel for if the person's okay with it. And if you get a smile or a nod or whatever, then you feel like you can, and they'll let you know if they don't want you to. If you've misread it, you get that, usually get the indication, you take your camera down.
Much like Shmuel, is that if it's a big group event, I'll just shoot wildly because it's a public news event that's going on. You're in public, and as part of the media, you have a right to shoot. If I'm going to be isolating and focusing in on one person, like the mom with the 2-year-old daughter, I put my camera down. I walked up to her and I introduced myself, and I told her who I was and what I am doing, and trying to get stories and hear about the voices of the in-house and what's going on and where in their situation. And then I spend time with them so that they loosen up, and I try to make it so they're not aware of the camera, but that we're having a conversation. That makes sense? So I would try to create rapport with them so that me shooting isn't having them create this facade of who they think that they need to be.
One question that came in from the Zoom folks, which is, are all the photographers photojournalists? So Kevin, Shmuel, yes, you don't really call yourself a photojournalist, more you're a travel photographer, but you have been published, right?
I wouldn't call myself a photojournalist, but yes, I've been published.
There was a question in the audience.
So the interesting thing to me about the iconic Dorothea Lange photo is she took a couple photos, and that particular one, for some reason, feels so intimate. Her distress is so apparent. But as you look at that series of photos being professionals, what is it about that actual photograph that captured that the other ones didn't?
For me, it was the close proximity, and then the eye contact. Like, you can see in her eyes. It brings you in as a viewer into the photo. Like, who is this woman and what's going on? Instead of being voyeuristic, it's bringing you in.
I felt like it was the composition. It had a unity, and with her children sort of surrounding her, and with her as a center, I thought it was really a beautiful composition, and the others were interesting images also, but I didn't think I think she really chose the right one.
I would agree, and it seems to me that the picture is sort of designed really well, and there's nothing superfluous about it. And I think that pictures that work tend to be either really tight or really wide. It's the mid-range pictures that we're not getting a perspective on. So I think it's the perspective and the simplicity of it.
We got a question from Christian who says, what is the process of choosing the one picture? And I'm not sure if that means, why did you choose the pictures you chose? I'm going to reinterpret the question and say, if you have, and this follows from Susan's question, actually, if you have taken half a dozen shots, if you've taken a dozen or however many, how do you winnow it down to the one?
I know. There's moments that I don't know. The picture that I showed of the surfer, I didn't know it looked like that till I got back and saw it on the computer. But it's not, for me, it's not, we have a saying, spray and pray, about how many pictures we shoot. So for me, it's not 5 or 12 pictures. It's when I come back from a basketball game, I'll have shot, 800, 900 pictures. I talked with the Warriors photographer. I was sitting next to the Warriors photographer, and he's the official photographer for them. He shoots 5,000 pictures at a game. But typically I'm lucky in that I need to get, if I go to the Warriors game, I need to get, say, 10 good in focus pictures, right? That's what I need. But I usually know what they are once they've happened.
Yeah, they pop right out at you when you put them on the computer and you're kind of rolling through and being, you know when you see them. I think I totally agree with Shmuel, even if you have thousands.
So, and one of the things that's the gift of digital photography is when I started with film. Obviously, I'm 64 and I have a picture of me with a camera when I was 5. So I've been shooting pictures for a long, long time, right? And before, there were a lot of challenges. Almost everything about digital photography is better than pre-digital photography from my perspective. But that now you can see what you got.
Say something right quick. I, of course, did film for many years. I hated digital, didn't want to do it, kicking and screaming. But the advantage, of course, is you could take all you want. You're not clicking for, however much dollars or cents each time you take a picture. It was quite expensive. And then you had to worry if we went through metal detectors, it was going to get fogged or what was going to happen to it. So there are a lot of advantages to digital.
I'm shooting to tell a story, but I don't want to dictate the story that's being told in the article that's being written. So our correspondents are writing the story, and then I will supply them with 20, 30 different images that are the best of the ones that I got, and I allow them to choose the photos that fits right with their story. Because I might have a photo that's like the best photo that I've ever took, that's just amazing, but it doesn't work within the story that they're telling. So I'll put it, in my social media, my Facebook or Instagram, or website, whatever. But if it doesn't work within the story that's being told in the article, then doesn't do its job. So I allow the editors to take my photos, my gallery, and go, okay, I want this one, this one, this one. So
we all of us started out with film, and what Shmuel said, I had that experience because in 1966 I was at the Newport Jazz Festival. If you go on the other side of that wall, you'll see I do a lot of musician photography, and I got a chance to shoot John Coltrane. Hope some of you know the name. And it's the only time I ever saw Train live. He died a year later. I was conserving, I only had a roll of, I got one picture of John Coltrane. The one time I had to photograph him, I got one picture. It's a decent photograph, but and now with digital, no such restrictions. So, all right. So, there is a question back there. Yeah.
As a photojournalist, you're sometimes faced with situations in which there's a lot of pain and tragedy and sometimes even danger. How do you process that? Does it balance out somehow in the big picture? Or can you talk a little bit about how you can endure that?
Is this on? There we go. It's a really good question. And I get asked that a lot. And looking through the viewfinder acts as kind of a barrier. I don't allow myself to emotionally get involved until later on, because I'm witnessing and I'm shooting and I'm trying to capture the emotions of what's going on from many different angles as I can to try to capture the raw emotion. And if I get caught up in it, then I'm going to miss what's going on. Does that make sense? So it allows as almost like a filter. When it comes to danger, I have to always remind myself, okay, look what's going on right now, because it's also the same thing. You have tunnel vision. So you're focusing on what you're watching and not what's going on around you. So it's really easy to find yourself in a situation that could be really dangerous. For instance, I was shooting at steamers, the surfing, and surfers would come up and I was trying to get the shot and I stepped back and I almost stepped off the cliff. And I literally like almost started crying because I was like so scared. I'm like, oh my God, that could have been really, really bad. So now every time I look where I am, okay, here, and I like kind of, it's like if the same thing with if there's a protest going on, okay, here's the street, there's traffic going on here. This is as far as I can go over before I'm going to get run over. So I try to mentally keep where is good and bad. And that also is the same thing, like if I go to on a homeless encampment that might feel really shady, I'm just overly aware of my surroundings.
Yeah, it's a strange sense of perspective because you got this thing in front of you and you don't have the peripheral vision, all that. My husband and I were in a place called Tanah Toraja in Indonesia, and they have it's interesting, it's a Christian animist group. And for when someone dies, they slaughter water buffalo. And I'm shooting away and they're killing this water buffalo. And of course, I had no idea how close I was until I had blood splattered on my lens. And then I realized that, oh, I better back up a little bit because this guy was going out of control. So it's exactly what Kevin was saying. It's just something you have to kind of try because you don't have that you normally have without something in front of your face, sense of where your placement, where you are. So sometimes having someone with you, like my husband, reminding me that maybe I should back up or, not fall off the cliff in Kevin's case.
And so I think it's a really valid concern. I think that it takes a particular, I mean, for at least what I do and what Kevin does, Mary's her world's a little different, but it takes a particular person. And the lens does that. And, it's just a really important job. That as fun as it is and as much of a privilege as it is, it's this responsibility of creating the visual history for this time in this place, right? So for me, there's that. And then in terms of the danger stuff, I mean, I take that really seriously, and I've done a lot of fire training. I have all the gear in my car. There's all sorts of things that you learn over the years. And now there's a few really phenomenal fire photographers, that are Noah Berger and Justin Sullivan and Josh Edelson and Ken Porter. And these they're all guys, Gabrielle Lurie. So there's a female. And they all go out together now. That no one's, the way fire is reacting in particular, we're just have never seen this before, right? Climate change has changed the way fires are reacting. And they're more ferocious and more unpredictable than they've ever been. So, you know, when I see their photographs, a lot of times it's the same scenes. And, you know, Kevin and I will talk, and there was a guy, Jaden, who used to live here. He just moved to Portland, and where I take a reporter because I need another set of eyes in the car. So
There's an old cliche, I think, the camera doesn't lie, but does it not lie? How much of what you bring to us is objective reality? Is there such a thing? How much do you layer onto it?
there's no objective reality. I mean, but that said, I think it was either David Brinkley who said, since we can't be impartial, we need to be fair. And I mean, and this may be different than what, once again, what Mary does. I don't know about, I think Kevin and I are pretty similar in that I won't put anything in my pictures that wasn't there, and I won't take anything out. You know, that's just like, I believe that when the picture's on the front page of the Sentinel, that you, as the viewer, believe it was a real moment. But we're making choices. We're making choices about, you know, what lens we use. And, you know, telephoto lenses compress space. You know, I've had people say, you could not possibly have taken that picture because the lighthouse and the jetty looks too close to the lighthouse at Lighthouse Point, right? But no, it's real, and that's the way the lens works. And we're choosing the moment, you know, which moment to use, and we're standing above or we're standing below. So I think, I mean, I really want to be able to, and I know this is going to sound weird, I want to be able to cover a Black Lives Matter rally, and I want to be able to cover a Klan rally. I want to be able to do it all, and for people to provide information of what's out there, and for people to make a decision and to be as fair as I can.
It's tricky. And I think all you can say is it's what you saw, and through your choices of lenses or whatever, it's what you experienced and saw to the best of way in which you could present it. I mean, I think that's all you can do, and hope that the way it's received is, you know, is accurate also.
We are, as photojournalists, we're capturing a moment in time. And it's not our job to say what you need to see out of the picture. Is for you to interpret what you see out of the photo. So we try to shoot it so it tells the truth the best way that it can. You know, by having, you know, the subject matter and the setting around it and where you're at, so that it's like, this is what's going on. This is capturing this moment in time. And, you know, like Shmuel says, we never add or take away anything in the photo, and that it is how you want to interpret the photo being, or the meaning behind it. That's kind of the ultimate of a good photo, is allowing you to be the judge of what you see.
Shmuel, you said you started, what, a picture of you with a camera when you were 5 or something like that. I remember taking Brownie Hawkeye. Yep, Brownie Hawkeye. Did you all start, when you started doing photography, you know, consciously that you were doing photography? Was there a subject matter, a style, a something that you started with, and does it relate at all to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I actually got started skateboarding back in 8th grade, maybe. A friend of mine took, you know, his black and white, amazing black and white photos of skateboarders. And I was a skater back at the time, and I was like blown away. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And they were just amazing, beautiful shots. And so that's what got me to start picking up a camera. And, you know, that next year I was shooting for the paper, for the school paper. So I was kind of, but
You're a
started.
fast learner.
Yeah. Well, actually, what's kind of funny was that I picked up the camera, I learned it, and then I knew that I wanted to take photos for the school I was, that summer I was in a car accident where I was left in a coma and basically I had missed about 3 months of school. So by the time I got back to school, they already had a photographer for the yearbook. And so they said, oh, but the paper needs a photographer. I'm like, the paper? I didn't even know there was a school paper. And so I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then so I started doing it. I'm like, this is the greatest job in the world. And I'm 49 now and still shooting and loving it every day of it.
I didn't start doing this very young. I started doing this as an adult. My background was in fashion design, so I think the composition aspect was a plus for me, but I didn't study photography. I had done a little photography, and back in the dark ages, Pajaro Valley Unified School District, where I was teaching at Renaissance High School, offered sabbaticals for a couple of years. So my husband and I went traveling in South America for a year on the $5,000, which is my half salary, and managed to live on it. And was one of my sabbatical projects, was doing photos. And I pretty much was already doing what I have continued to do, mostly documenting the people of Latin American people, Central and South America. And when I brought those back, they were well received, and that sort of launched me into the photography, world of photography, which I'm like you. It's what I would do, and I do sometimes, many times, without any incentive, because it is so much fun.
And yeah, I just, I really started taking pictures at the age of 5 and with the Kodak Brownie, and I shot pictures for my junior high school yearbook, and I went to school to take pictures. And my parents also were really supportive. My dad had been a photographer. He ended up being an Emmy award-winning TV news producer and director, and my mom is around, but she was a painter, and when she wasn't being a university dean. So they really encouraged me and my 2 brothers to do what we made us happy. But when I was going to school, I went to the NYU Film School, and I was doing photography there, and my pictures had no people in them, which is not a really great business model to make a living as a photographer. But in the end, I was able to, and you saw the Mary Cuomo shot there, I was able to use that, what I was concerned with lines and geometrics, and then that's what I think helped me kind of develop my vision that was a little different than anyone else.
In case there's anybody in the audience, Sarah has a microphone, so if you would like to ask some questions. Got one more from Christian, but this one, maybe we ought to do it afterwards, but I think he's wondering if any of you are looking for assistance for training opportunities. So maybe we can find out about that afterwards. We have a question over here.
I was just wondering, in terms of the technical achievement of the Lange photograph, with the equipment that she was using, I mean, I'm just used to digital and Lightroom and being able to crop and enhance and all that. Did she have any of that ability? I mean, should she actually fill the frame with that photo? Or did they have the ability even at that time to crop, and did she have the ability to enhance it at all at all?
I don't know about that particular image, but she was shooting. Well, Jim, if you turn around the camera, you can see how big the negative is. Okay, thank you. So the negative that they were using was that big, right? So they could crop a tiny piece of that out and it would work. A lot of what Dorothea Lange did, and a lot of the others like Ansel Adams, they were making just contact prints, contact prints. So they were just, the print was as big as the negative was, right? And they're gorgeous. But I started shooting digitally in 2003, and it was a revelation, but technically it wasn't very good. Now I'm convinced that that technically, if you know what you're doing, the results can be even better than they ever were with film.
The other thing too is that it's a 4x5 camera or the resolution available. Have we not paid the electrical bill? The resolution that you get from a medium format camera is significant. So certainly compared to a 35 millimeter, you've got a lot more to work with. And did I inadvertently switch it off? Yeah.
I have this wonderful book, which is from the Museum of Modern Art that Fiona, who's sitting over there, loaned me. And it's really good if anybody's interested in getting it. It's called Migrant Mother, Dorothea Lange, Migrant Mother. And they make reference to some controversy over the fact that there was something about the hand on the post, and it was changed somewhat. So there was potential, not like today, but there were some. I'm not exactly sure, what the change was, but anyway, this has a little bit about the technical, and it shows all the pictures that Jim showed us, and it is a very, very lovely book, and I appreciate being able to be loaned it. So
If you, is this now working? I think it is. Ansel Adams was a master printer, and what can you do in the darkroom? Well, he did a lot of things, dodging and burning and selenium toning, I think, and you end up with black fingernails in certain circumstances and so forth. And so there's a tremendous amount you could do. There is a tremendous amount and then some that you can do with digital.
Yeah, he kind of just stated kind of what I was just about to say, is that, even when you're printing in the darkroom, it's basically doing the exact same stuff that you can do in Lightroom. As with cropping in and doing the adjusting the levels and the contrast, and that was always my favorite part in the darkroom. Is I'd spend 10 hours in there, and then come out and it's totally bright out. Go, what the heck? But yeah, it's the same thing. And the same thing now is using Lightroom, I still just love it so much. Same processing, working a photo and making it as best as it can be.
And this relates to what we were talking about a little before, where it's really easy to manipulate an image and add the stuff and take away stuff now digitally. They used to, you could always do it. If you look at like the Soviets, when there's pictures where Trotsky's in it and then he's not. Really, like they used to take it out, but it was very difficult. And then it's fascinating stuff where, people photographers in Iraq, Brian Walsky combined two pictures to make one, because he thought the people looked better in one and the soldier looked better in another. And I think that we have to, I think that as photojournalists, we have nothing but our integrity, right? That because everyone now is a photographer, right? I bet that almost all of you have taken a picture with your phone at some point, right? And and speaking to that too, if you go to Facebook, say, or Instagram a little less, but there's a lot of really awful pictures on Facebook, right? And I believe that we're not necessarily so much better. We just, I think, pay attention more to what's going on. And, and the thing that we do is we transform the three-dimensional world into two-dimensional reality, right? And that's not necessarily an easy thing.
And maybe we added a little more, as opposed to putting 300 pictures of the baby's christening or the birthday party, you know, it's like sort of maybe less is more, something like that.
You all have, I think, oh, we have a question. Good, excellent.
Yeah, actually, it's a follow-on to that objective reality kind of, and the impact of technology now. It used to be, people said, you know, if I don't see a picture, it didn't happen. But now we see pictures and we still don't know if it really happened. How is technology changing the position of photojournalism and photography in documenting what happened?
That's a good question. And that is what makes our job more important. And I don't want to ever sound self-important, but as a photojournalist, like Shmuel was saying, is that, you know, our job is, you know, our integrity. Knowing that it's so easy to manipulate a photo and to create an event that may not have happened, or you know, like Donald Trump, make out his inauguration, make it look like there was, you know, huge amount of people there. It's like, it's just, it's your integrity. You know, what I mean? That's what it all comes down to is you got to prove yourself that, look, you know, this is the truth that what was happening and that what I witnessed, and not let the tools and the ease of being able to manipulate it influence you.
And it's going to get more so as we enter into the world of AI. I just saw in the New York Times some pictures of people who were speaking, but they weren't real people. And they were created. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting to differentiate between what we really put out there and what's really created digitally.
I don't think there's an easy answer. I mean, I think it's sort of the horse that's left the barn. You know, that, I mean, we're really fortunate to be here in Santa Cruz. I mean, you know, this is a incredible community we live in. And at least for me, you know, the conversation I have with the community every day, I think that people understand that what the pictures I take are real moments. But I think that because it's so easy to manipulate the reality, that and I mean, we had a newsroom staff of 46 in 1994, 1995. We have a newsroom staff of 8. And we are not the exception, right? So if you have any business and you reduce your staff by 3/4, or more, actually, you're done, right? You can't do the same job you did. And I still think the Sentinel, and no offense to Lookout or anything, I still think the Sentinel's the best place to find out what's happening in Santa Cruz County. And I wouldn't work for it if I didn't. But, you know, it's a real problem of how people get their news and how they get it online and what they believe. And you see in the national conversation, national situation, it's part of that's part of the whole thing of why there's no collective belief on certain things being reality.
So we're just about out of time, as they say in the talk shows. How about you wrap up with a manifesto? Or any closing words, anything that any of you would like to say about your work, about photography, about what we've been looking at.
I just thank you all for being part of my world, and I just, you know, I feel like I have the job I was meant to do, and my job, as much as journalism is really depressing right now, my job has never been better. They just they publish my work every day. It's pretty spectacular. Well, they pay me, but not that much.
I'd like to, I just read a very short little thing from this lovely book and about Dorothea Lange, because she's always been one of my heroines. I think women in photography there's still fewer of us, and they really, somebody like Dorothea Lange, especially with a handicap, and carrying this equipment. I mean, carrying equipment is not fun, folks. And as I get older and I go work out every day to try to still be able to do it, but I just think that what she did was remarkable. And in this book, it says that she had a quote from Francis Bacon that hung prominently in her studio from 1934 to the end of her life. And I think it sort of sums up what I assume that she did. I think it's what she tried to do. The contemplation of things as they are, without substitution or imposture, without error or confusion, is in itself a nobler thing than a whole harvest of invention. And I thought that was really a remarkable quote and worth sharing with you. And thank you all for coming in and sharing this evening.
First, I get humbled by the fact that I get to do what I get to do. I say this every single day to every person that I ever meet, is that I feel so privileged that I just spend all day traveling all over Santa Cruz County, get to meet the coolest people, most amazing, interesting people, see the most incredible, amazing things, and tell it in a visual story. And that people allow me into their lives to have an intimacy for them to open themselves up and allow me to capture them in their element. And it's the biggest privilege that I can never thank everybody enough. And that I get to do this for a living. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So it's like, I just love meeting people and being able to spend time with them and take photos of them and just capture them of who they are.
Okay, I think that about wraps it up for tonight. Quickly, if you are not, oh, we have a poll, so that's for the online people, I guess. If you are not familiar with our community reads, there are a bunch more events going on. A couple of things that are very specific to Dorothea Lange, including a presentation at the end of this month by her daughter-in-law. Her son produced a presentation about his mother. He has since died, and his wife, now, who's also a photographer, will be here. And check the calendar. You can find all the events either on the Santa Cruz Public Library website or the Aptos Friends website, which is friendsofaptoslibrary.org, not friends of the, but just there's no article. friendsofaptoslibrary.org, and the whole calendar's in there. There's a lot more stuff coming up. So with that, thank you for being here. Thank you to Kevin. Whoop, wait a minute.
Will did bring a bunch of copies of the book that we did.
Oh, right. Yep. So Kevin, Mary, and Shmuel, thank you very much. Good.